It's the rock in the building.
ਜਦ ਬਚ ਕੇ ਰਹੀ ਨੀ ਤੂੰ ਹੁਣੇ ਹੁਣੇ ਹੋਈ ਮੁਟਿਆਰ ਮੁੰਡਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਬਚ ਕੇ ਰਹੀ ਨੀ ਤੂੰ ਹੁਣੇ ਹੁਣੇ ਹੋਈ ਮੁਟਿਆਰ ਮੁੰਡਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਬਚ ਕੇ ਰਹੀ
Baby, are you down, 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 down? Baby, are you down, 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 down?
You are the reason that I breathe. You are the reason that I still believe. You are my destiny. Say oh.
So we're here at Sony Music HQ in London with DJ Nihal talking the Asian Collection compilation album. First time by a major record label. How significant is this?
It cannot be underestimated actually how important this is, especially not just because it's on a major label, but because the amount of time and effort they're putting into making sure that so many people know about it. So TV advertising, not just on Asian channels, but on mainstream channels. And then, of course, a PR drive. That's why your wonderful self is sitting here. And then, you know, advertising, promotion, marketing, design, getting the tracks together, as you can imagine, over 50 tracks is a colossal task. And it's taken us 2.5 years to get to this stage where I'm sitting in front of you right now, yeah.
Wow. I mean, 50 tracks, a lot of well-known names there. And you've been in the scene for years now. Has there been calls, emails, messages saying, oh, why didn't you include me?
There has, weirdly, that's a fantastic question which no one's asked yet. And there has been, in fact. And just today I was having a kind of text conversation with someone who I am a huge fan of and a huge admirer of, but it just didn't make the cut. I actually thought that I had included them, and they pointed out that it wasn't them kind of named on it. So I'm not going to name who it was, but it's someone who I really admire, and I'm a huge fan of their music. But for me, the Asian Collection, this should be part one, and I'm hoping that it will sell enough for me to be able to do a part 2 and a part 3, because you can't possibly fit all of these genres and such a rich culture as we have onto one 3 CD compilation. So I'm hoping that we can do enough business. Also as well, not just me, I'm hoping that this will then perhaps tell other labels, well, maybe we should be doing another one. Yeah. And perhaps even Asian labels getting together and collaborating and saying, well, actually, we should be doing one. And then making sure that we can get more of these albums out there and get the music out there to as many people as possible.
I mean, the other thing would be the fact that obviously there are artists here who are from India, who work in Bollywood, for instance. That's certain to, I'm sure, irk people within the British Asian music scene here as well. Was that something that went through your mind when you were compiling this?
No, because it's about music. I'm not interested in the politics. I'm not interested in the sensitivities of people who go, oh, how dare you include Indian tracks on there? Because anyone who said that, you know, is the kind of person who would be kind of ignoring their roots and then kind of not being... You can't say on one hand, I'm desi, I'm so desi, and then on the other hand go, why you got Indian tracks on there, bruv? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. You have to understand that this is about music. This isn't about territoriality. Like, I'm not saying, right, I need a Bengali quota, I need a Sri Lankan quota, I need a Pakistani quota, I need an Indian quota. No, there isn't actually, and that's I should have had. And this is one of the big tracks actually I missed out on, was a Ranidu and Iraj track called Ahankara Nagare, which should have been on there. And if I get to do a second one, it will guaranteed be on there, because that's one of my favourite tracks of all time. So there isn't much of a Sri Lankan quota on there at all, but that's because I didn't go through it region by region. I went through it song by song. And, you know, 12 years of Radio 1, 12 years of music. Come and see my CD collection. It would take me years to go through every single track. So really, when you're compiling this, the really good rule of thumb is, what are the tracks that you think of first? Over those 12 years, what are the tracks that come to your mind first and go, I love that track?
This is not the first compilation you've done. I know you did one with Bobby Friction many years ago. How's music, or Asian music, evolved in that time? Has it really changed much, do you think? How's it evolved, do you think?
Well, that again is another good question, because in many ways it hasn't evolved at all. In some ways it's gone backwards. I think that Bollywood has evolved much more than British Asian music has evolved. And in fact, a lot of the producers, the British Asian producers, would argue that the audiences here have become more conservative. And then it's taken someone like Yo-Yo Honey Singh, for instance, to start mixing kind of urban genres with Bollywood in a much more credible way. That has led to him being a huge star amongst young people in India. And then you've got artists like Bohemia, for instance, the rapper in America, who's a huge name in kind of Indian rap. But then you've got the sense that Bhangra particularly has become more and more desi. Now, it's whether you argue that's a backward step or actually consolidating the culture to say, actually, all this Bhangra that was mixed with garage and Bhangra that was mixed with dubstep, we're not really into that. We want to bring it to the roots, and we want to teach a next generation about the basics of the dol and the tumbi, and we want to do that. So, you know, it's a really interesting time. And that's why, you know, tracks on there like Jay Sean's Down or Missy Elliott's Get Your Freak On are not really staple parts of an Indian household in that respect. But in terms of, I think, if you're in your 20s or your 30s or even into your early 40s, those songs will mean something to you. They'll definitely mean something to you. And we all know, don't we, how much Asians love hip-hop and R&B. Right, love hip-hop and R&B.
For me, the fascinating thing is that a fellow Sri Lankan is leading this charge, as it were. I mean,
that fascinates a lot of people. Yeah, I think it annoys some people. To be fair,
I'm guessing it annoys a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, I think that happened originally. I think when I started on Radio 1 and I started playing Bhangra, there was, never to my face, but there was definitely a sense that came back to me via other people that there were people saying in the Bhangra industry, why is this Sri Lankan? He's not even Indian. He's not even Punjabi. Why is he doing it? And I made a point, and I understood that completely, because it looked like this guy was coming and taking your scene and making decisions about your scene that he was not qualified to do. So I made a very, very conscious effort 12, 13 years ago to go to the heart of it, you know, to go and hang out in Birmingham, to be with that Envy Records crew when Zeus and Sanj were just blowing up, spend time in the studio, talk to the guys who ran the labels, have those conversations with them, understand the history and what was going on. Also to analyse how the industry worked, because I was used to how the mainstream industry worked. Buildings like this I've been coming to for 20 years. But before I was on Radio 1, I was coming into buildings like this because I used to work for record companies. So then trying to understand how the scene worked. And I brought the experience that I had of working in this industry to that industry. So I could ask questions that people weren't asking perhaps. I also brought ears which were different perhaps to people who'd just been completely ensconced in Bollywood and Bhangra. So that's all they understood. I brought a spectator's perspective. And for me, that's what it meant. It meant that, okay, I get why you think that's a good Bhangra track. But the melody's not very strong. The arrangement is not very strong. When the person is singing it, regardless of whether I understand the language or not, I can't hear a passion in their voice. You know, there's a difference, a massive difference between hearing like a mediocre singer and hearing Gurdas Mann sing. Now, you don't need to be Punjabi to understand the difference between a mediocre Punjabi singer and Gurdas Mann. You know, you just know it. Because if you know about music, you will know that. And that's what I brought to it. And I think over the years, I gained respect from people. You know, because I think I was fair and I had open conversations with artists. I was very much on the artist side, so I wasn't arrogant about that. And, you know, you can go and speak to people. Look, it's not a popularity contest in some respects. There's some people who think I'm a complete moron. But the people I respect, people like Jags Climax, for instance, who I think is probably the best Asian DJ in the world. Yeah. You know.
Seriously. Yeah,
I mean, this guy is the DJ's DJ. I've never seen a guy DJ like him. It's unbelievable what he does on turntables. It's an art form. It's like watching a concert pianist. It's just beautiful to watch and inspiring to watch.
Obviously, that's your kind of, well, for a lack of a better word, your very fair encroachment into the British Asian community. It's kind of spread out into other areas as well. You've just come from doing a radio show on the death penalty in India. Yeah. You kind of straddle these very distinct lives. You've got the music side and you've got the politics side, the discussion show on the Asian network, etc. Is there one that you prefer? I mean, how do you kind of cross over between the two?
Well, I would never stopped loving music. I think I've fallen out of love with DJing, like being in a club per se. But one thing I will never fall out of love with is discovering new music, speaking to new artists, seeing if I can do anything to help them, because I have extensive contacts in buildings like this. So that I will never leave. And the ability to be able to do something like this at this stage in my career at Sony is just incredible for me. It's another kind of bucket moment list on the bucket list. Yeah, it's on the bucket list for me. I can go, right, I've done this now. And it's incredible. But I get a massive buzz from interviewing David Cameron, or, next week Shashi Tharoor is on my show, who's been a huge Indian MP recently. And I get a huge buzz from having that kind of verbal battling, that kind of chess play of, you've got lyrics, I've got lyrics, you've got questions, you've got answers, I've got questions. And that kind of, I absolutely love. And, as you get older, you want to do things that are intellectually stimulating to you, I think. And doing the Asian Network show and increasingly doing more stuff on BBC 5 Live. Yeah. I'm going to the Olympics next year for BBC Sport. So doing things like that are brilliant. And I think it's, I'm at that age now where people will come up to me and go, oh yeah, like, because they're teenagers or in their mid-20s, and go, I remember listening to you when I was at school. And you want to be in places where a 15-year-old Asian kid will see you, or they'll see Anita Rani, or they'll see Adil Ray, or they'll see Tommy Sandhu, or they'll see Nitin Ganatra, and they'll go, I want to do that. And that's what you want to do. You want to say that you can do lots of things, that Asian people don't necessarily have to go and work in their parents' shop, or they have to be a doctor. They can go and be very successful in the media and do very, very well. I earn more than a doctor earns. So, and look what I'm wearing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I did terribly at school. I'm not to say to denigrate doctors in any way, shape or form, because they do a fantastic job. But what I'm saying is that doesn't have to be your only pursuit to gain credibility in the Asian community. As if you're either a doctor or you're not worth anything, or you're either a lawyer or you're not worth anything. And look at Jay Sean. Jay Sean is a multi-millionaire. Tell me a single doctor who has earned as much as he has in the last... There's probably not many. Maybe cosmetic surgeons. Cosmetic surgeons, Harley Street cosmetic surgeons probably have. And the odd dentist or two who can afford to go and murder a lion needlessly.
But, the problem with the whole Cecil the Lion issue is nobody's actually talking about the Zimbabweans who facilitated and profited from this.
Yeah,
right?
But then, of course, going off topic massively, but they are a developing world country where rich people from the first world can go and pay them to kill their animals. Now, that is a poor country, and people, if they survive their livelihood and that pays for their kids to have food, I'm not going to judge them for that. I am going to judge the bloke who spent £33,000 on slaughtering a lion. What he should have done is spent £20,000 and just gone and seen the beauty of Cecil the Lion in their natural environment, not stick an arrow through his head and then shoot him and then cut his head off.
But just slightly, getting back to topic, getting back to the show, Shashi Tharoor next week. Should Britain pay reparations? Again, slightly off topic, but I had to ask it.
Well, we did a debate about this, and as you can imagine, as a BBC employee, I don't have an opinion necessarily on whether the BBC should pay reparations or not. I think there is an argument that says that problems that exist in the world, you cannot absolve yourself of the responsibility of what empire did to these countries. And if you think about what empire did, what I would rather know is rather than reparations, I think British schools should teach about South Asian involvement in the First and Second World War. That should be a part of the curriculum, that white and black children, or no, not white and black, white children in this country should grow up understanding that the war effort wasn't just a white war effort. It was a war effort by people of different races. When you're talking about Islamophobia, for instance, if you were to then suddenly point out to, some of these kids who perhaps don't like Muslims very much, look at the Muslim soldiers who died in the First World War and in the Second World War. Those kinds of things I think are really important. Reparations, look, well, in 2013, look, The Indian government themselves have said we don't need aid from you anymore. They've phased that out. This year it's being phased out. In 2013 it was £289 million. So they're phasing it out. India is sending crafts to Mars. They have a nuclear program. They have some of the richest people on planet Earth existing there. They're more than capable in time sorting out their own problems. But it was an interesting debate that Shashi Tharoor came out with. But I think from a British Asian perspective, you would like to have much more education about Commonwealth contributions to this country rather than the debate being just very one-sided.
Yeah, but that education in the current context of this, all this anti-immigration rhetoric in the Daily Mail going on about Calais and all of that, that's not helping, is it? Not just the Daily Mail. That's not helping, is it?
Well, I guess, there are Asians who have issues with immigration. I mean, there are Asians in this country who feel as though we have enough people, because they call in my phone in show and tell me that, which some people are surprised because obviously the other side of it, they go, wait a minute, you're the son or daughter of an immigrant, how dare you? But saying that, for instance, you can't be in a bubble. Like you've got to say, okay, I used to get a GP appointment in a week. Now it takes 2 weeks to get a GP appointment. I went to school early, easily, to my local school. I can't get my kids into my local school. Now, then you have to be smart and analyse why exactly that's happening. And if you just believe newspaper headlines that tell you that it's because of immigrants, then that's a problem. But what you can't also do is say it's not because of immigration. You have to look at the facts and see, well, is it happening because there is an influx of people from the European Union into this? Because after all, the last Labour government hugely underestimated how many Polish people, just Polish people, they thought it would be in the tens of thousands. It ended up being in the hundreds of thousands. Now, that is inevitably going to put some pressure on local services, without doubt. And then if you add austerity to that as well, that is potentially quite a divisive potion that you are stirring in that pot. And you have to be very, very careful about it.
Immigration and Asian music. I mean, great strange bedfellows.
Well, I think weirdly enough, we do have an artist on that album who was deported. So I think immigration is important. Yeah.
Which one was that then?
Gary Sandu. Actually.
Oh, Gary.
And I'm not telling any gossip. It was widely reported that he was.
Absolutely.
And he's a fantastic singer and a great artist. And it was just a shame that he didn't get his visa sorted out. Yeah.
Asian collection out 31st of July.
Out Friday the 31st of July. First time ever Asda are selling CDs in the world food aisle. First time ever.
Alongside coconut milk and
basmati rice.
And
10 kg bags of basmati rice. Suddenly does it begin to make sense?
Makes absolute sense. Nihal, thank you so much for your time and good luck, mate. Thank you.
Great to speak to you.